All right. My name is Bruce Botts, and today we're going to actually talk about and go through a presentation called Keep Calm and Grade On. Keep Calm and Grade On is actually talking about setting up and configuring your gradebook in D2L, and we're going to go through how to actually start from the beginning with the wizard to start the configurations, and then actually using categories, items, and then going over stuff on the Grade Center. So the objectives on this, we're going to actually explain the purpose for using Grade Center, discuss how to effectively implement the use of D2L's Grade Center, and then compare the advantages and challenges of incorporating the use of the Grade Center. So one of the main purposes for having it and using the Grade Center is to keep grades within the course. Sometimes people like to keep their own gradebooks separate, so you have papers that you have grades in scattered throughout and you're trying to keep them organized. This lets you actually keep all the grades within the course, so it's all in one location. You can also set up criteria and let the Grade Center do the calculations. So you're not having to actually sit down with a calculator and do all the calculations and figure out what each one of your points are and what they add up to, and then do the division. So it'll do it for you, so that way there's less opportunity or less chance for something getting missed somewhere when you're trying to do it. Especially if you have lots and lots of items in your courses, when you're doing lots and lots of stuff on a calculator, it's easy sometimes to miss one thing when you're going through and actually working with it. Students can see the grades immediately. Once stuff is graded and it's put in, the grade will show up for them immediately. As an instructor, if you have a paper copy of a grade book, you keep everything in that. The students can't see it unless you hand a paper back to them or you let them know what their grade's going to be. It also gives you the ability for using the Grade Center to be able to easily look up a grade. So if a student actually says, I'm not sure on that, or why did I get this, or I think that was entered wrong, you can easily pull up the Grade Center and see exactly what it is because it's all in one location, it's all right there. And you can also look it up from anywhere. So if you have internet access, you can access it. It's not like you forget a hard copy of it in your office, you're like, well, I'll have to wait till I get back to the office. You can pull it up immediately. So it's really important to keep everything there. It's also best practice. Marzano's 13 Teaching Best Practices actually discusses the importance of keeping your gradebook up to date. Not only does it allow you to monitor students' progress, it helps you see that they are ready to move on to the next topic. So, and it also lets you see who needs remediation and who could benefit from enrichment activities. So it allows you to be able to see where your students are because it's all in one location and what's going on with them, and it also allows the students to be able to see it. So it gives them actually the chance to look at where they are, what they have done, what they're missing, because they will see it immediately if the grade shows up or if they get a 0. If they did something, they will immediately contact you and say, hey, why did I get a 0 for this? So it kind of gives them an idea also and a basis on that, which is really big for retention because it also lets the students know where they are, keep up to date, and be able to go through with what they need to be able to do. And it also provides ownership for learning for the key for student achievement as well. So they can know exactly where they stand and they can take ownership on what they're doing. So the Grade Center setup, when you first go into a course, it's a blank shell, or if you get a blank shell and you start working with it, the first thing you're going to come into when you go to Grade Center is actually going to be the setup wizard. There are several steps on this, and I've got screenshots of all of them that we'll walk through here. The setup wizard, though, lets you start, and it actually has different areas in here that let you preset your gradebook up for most of what you're going to want to do. So the first thing when you come in for the setup wizard, you start walking through it, is going to be the grading system. This gives you an option to go in to select whether you want to do a weighted grade, a points grade, or a formula. So just like it shows here from examples, weighted grade, if you have different parts of the course that are worth different aspects, maybe you have homework's 50% of your grade, quizzes are 50% of your grade, or quizzes are 40%, final exams 10%. However the instructor does in their course, this allows you to set up for percentages. A points value allows you to assign points. It will actually do the addition for you, and it'll also figure out an overall final grade based off of the points. Some people do this and use this as a point system that all the points together for all the assignments equal 100. Some of them go in and do it to where it could be more than that, and then it just divides itself out by how many points are there. And then you have a formula. The formula is for final grade determinant of a point. If you have, say, something's going to be maybe one category with point system, one's going to be something else. This is an area for you to be able to go in and actually create your own formula for how you want it to be able to weight it out. The most common are going to be weighted or points, depending on what people usually and generally in those categories. The next step is going to be grade release. You have a calculated final grade and an adjusted final grade. The calculated final grade is just what the grade center puts in. It will do that automatically. You will still see that even if you have an adjusted final grade clicked here. But the calculated final grade is what it does on its own. The adjusted final grade, if you click on that, gives you a place that you can actually go in and modify. So if you're one of the instructors that has a student that works really, really hard, and you get somebody that has like an 80, maybe an 89.9% in the class, and you don't normally round, this would be the opportunity if you said, okay, I'm one of those instructors that want to be able to round something up at the end. You could actually come in here and be able to round that up, or you could adjust it on what you need to do from here, especially if you have some type of bonus assignment they get bonus points for, and maybe you don't want to calculate it in here. This is where you can come in and be able to adjust for those extra points to be able to set that up. The next area here is grade calculations. You have two different options when you're setting up grade calculations. You could drop ungraded items, which means it's only going to show a calculated total based off of what is currently in the grade book. So if you have one assignment, a student has 100% on it, it's going to show their final calculated grade at that point as 100%, and it will change based off of each assignment what their score is. The other option here is to treat ungraded items as a 0. If you click this, it will actually show their final grade as a 0%. As they do assignments, it will start adding those points in towards closer to whatever your final grading scheme is going to be. Personal preference on what you want to do. If you treat ungraded items as a 0, I have had several instructors that have contacted me before because they wanted that, and they said their students freak out because they see they have like 1.2% in the class after the first week. So just something to keep in mind if that's an item that you do choose. And then obviously there's also an auto update, which will automatically keep the final grade updated based off of what your preference is. There's a couple different grading schemes that are in here. By default, it's going to be a percentage. Generally, students want to see where they are and what they're making based off of 100%. So that's why that's set up. You could also choose letter grade. The default's at a percentage, so that'd be up to instructors to what you guys want to choose on that. The next two screens are basically both different types of options. Step 5 is the option for how many decimal points you want to be shown and how you want it to view. And then step 6 actually comes in and is a student view. So what is checked in step 6 will actually show what the students will see on their side. So they can see a points grade, weighted grade, grade scheme symbol, a color. There's an option to be able to actually down here to come in and display final grade calculations if you want them to be able to see that. By default, that's turned off, but that is an option if you want them to be able to see that. And you can also put in here if you want them to be able to see more than just, see decimal places, I should say, instead of just not having any. The last step of the actual setup wizard is just a grade setup summary. What this does is it just runs through the different options that you've selected and then allows you to be able to say, okay, yes, this is what I wanted. So just kind of a review before you actually say finish and say that you're ready to start setting up your actual grade book. Once you have that part of it set up, you're only going to have two categories that are going to show up, final calculated grade and final adjusted grade. What you can do on this is come in here to manage grades once you get the wizard set, and this is where you're going to start adding your items to be able to come in and determine on what you want. I set this up just as a weighted just because it was the option when I first went through, so that's why it says final calculated grade sums to 0%, not 100. It will show this different options though if you're not adding up to certain point values in here based off of that, because it does the calculations for you and says, hey, you're not at what you need to be at for 100%. Let me go back one slide actually. When you get ready first off to start setting up your grade book, you're going to click this new button. When you do, you're going to have two different options. One of them is going to be category, one of them is going to be items. First thing I'm going to talk about here is going to be your categories. So the first category I'm going to talk about is a weighted category. Weighted category is an area to be able to come in and be able to work with a weighted total for everything within a category. A category is kind of like a heading. So I put in here, you can kind of see where I have name for homework, and then I just put bookwork down below because maybe you may have more than one type of homework and different weights based off of that. But like this would be a homework category, for instance, and then you would have items, which we'll talk about in a minute, that will fall underneath these categories. So for a weighted category, they're basically groups that each of your assignments go into and determine for an overall course grade based off of a calculation. So if you come through here, you have a weight you can actually add in. So I just typed in 50% for the weight and just put that in. So okay, 50% is what the weight would be for this category. You have some more options down below. You can actually let it exceed 50%. Obviously, there's bonus points for stuff. There's distribution. So if you have different items, you can manually assign it. You can distribute weights by points if you want the points to add up to be able to do weights that way. Or you could just distribute weights evenly across all items. This is probably one of the more common ones I see, but it's your prerogative as to what you'd like to do. You also have the option down here, if you distribute across, that you can actually drop grades. So you could actually say if you had 11 assignments, all of them are going to be worth 10 points apiece. You could actually come in here and say, okay, I want to drop the lowest number of non-bonus items, so I want to drop one score. Or you could say, I want to drop the highest. I want, depending on what you want to do, highest or lowest, but you have that option to be able to go in and actually drop those based off of what's there. So if you have multiple assignments, that is an option that you could set up. And then you have options on down below just for display options. You can set up different options down there for what the students can see or what they can do. And then obviously the restrictions tab, which if you wanted to go in and set up release conditions or something like that from what we've talked about in prior session, D2L Lightning sessions, that's where you would go in to be able to do that. The other type of category is a points category. For points category, you're going to come in, same thing, you put your name in, so this could be set up as homework. The grading, whether you want it to exceed or not exceed, and then you can come in here and you have a distribute points across all items. So this would allow you to distribute points across every item if you wanted to distribute them evenly. Again, items you can drop down here if you want to drop items. That's available. But you also you can do points per item as to how many each one's worth. But your preference as to how you want to set it up and what you want to do with it. So a category, again, it's just a group that your different things in your grade book are going to live within. So just think of a category as a group, or it's a category with stuff that's going to be under it. For a point-based system, I mean, you could have, like for homework, for instance, you could have like 10, maybe 10 assignments out of a book. You could also do discussions for one of them. You could have like 10 discussion boards. If it was quizzes, maybe do 5 quizzes. A project, I mean, it could all be components that are graded separately, but you could still put different things into a specific category if you chose to do that. Even if they're going to be graded separately, you have that option when you get into items for how many each one's worth. So once you've created the categories, you're going to go in, you're going to select new, and you're going to set up a grade item. A grade item is where you actually enter your grade for your students in gradebook. Like I said, the categories are groups these live in, but the grade item is actually where you will enter the grades. If you select categories and set them up, but you don't do grade items, you will not have a place to be able to actually enter a grade for a student in gradebook. So the grade items are what will show when you go into Grade Center. When you select new item, it's going to pull up a screen that's going to show you a variety of different options. Numerics probably the most common because usually we grade based off out of a point system for each individual item. You have a pass-fail, a formula, if you have some type of regular formula you want to actually put in, calculated, text. There's all different types of options here. You can kind of go through and play with those in there when you're setting one up if you want to look at some of the different ones. The one I'm going to talk about is going to be numeric because that's the one that's usually generally used because we usually grade based off of a point system of some sort, whether it's weighted points or individual points or some type of a numeric value that's usually added to an assignment. So when you're doing a grade item, you'll come in. This is an example for a weighted one. So again, you'd put in the name. This might be quiz 1 if it's a quiz assignment. The category area right here where it says none for the drop down, you would actually drop this down and pick which one you want to put it in and assign it to. So if it was a discussion board, you may actually come in here and put discussions in here and assign it to discussions category. You could assign it to homework, quizzes, whatever it is you set up for your category, this is where you'll find it. Spot for description, down here is grading. If it's a weighted category, the weight for that assignment, once it's selected, will be down here, and it will put stuff in based off the category by default. So you'll also have to put in how many points each one of the assignments is worth. If you're doing it based off a grade point value, then what you would do at that point is come in here again, type in the name, quiz 1 for instance. You'll see this is in a quiz category. This is what I've already clicked on here just to show that. And then down here, maximum points, I put in here for 100 points. You could change it and put in something different if you choose to have a different value related to that, but that would be your option to go in on to be able to set that up. When it comes to working with it, that's pretty much all you're going to do is set up categories, set up items. Once you do that, your students will show, your categories are there, and then you'll be entering grades in, which next week we're going to talk about actually tying items into Grade Center. And at that point, we'll talk about actually entering the grades and doing things to be able to get the Grade Center to sync up with your items for the grades at that point. But for advantages and disadvantages, the advantages to having this set up and using the Grade Center in D2L is grades are centralized in one location. Students always know the grade. So they can look in there and they can see what their grades are for each assignment. They know it's been graded. They know it's there. They know what's going on with it. You can easily pull up grades because it's in one location. So even instructors or students, either one can go in, which is really good because the students know where they are in the course. They know what's going on. Keeping students in track and going on with the course, again, that's going to help retention because they're not confused about what's going on, and they're going to feel more comfortable and confident to be able to get things done. So like, yes, I have this done, this is done, this is done, instead of wondering. The calculations are done for you based off of how you set it up. So it makes it simple in that aspect that you can go in and be able to see your calculations, not have to worry about, did I miss something when I added? And once it's set up for the first time, if you do course copies, it'll copy over semester to semester for what your settings are. Your items will copy over, and so will your categories. So you won't have to continually go in and reset this up every single semester. To where if you have a paper copy, you're going to have to rewrite everything out every semester. So it's a nice advantage of having it there where once it's done one time, it's set up and it's done. Disadvantages, again, like I said, the time to set it up. So the time to set up the gradebook for the first time, it is going to be time consuming because you're going to put all your stuff in there, especially if you have a course that has lots of assignments in it. But it's on the front end. It's a one-time thing. Like I said, when you copy it over, the advantage is there, it's done. Versus doing it by hand, you don't have to write it out every semester if you keep a regular grade book by hand. And then also knowing how you want to grade. Some people sometimes start and they say, okay, I don't know what I want to set up. Do I want weighted? Do I want points? Do I want a combination? What am I going to do? So that can be a disadvantage if you don't know what you want, that when you set it up, it may not be set up the way you want. You may change your mind and want to do something different when you first set it up. And that's stuff that can go in and we can make change. You can see somebody in CTAT, we can help you make changes if that does happen. But that's something that's disadvantages of you have to actually sit down and think about how you want stuff set up, what category stuff is going to go in ahead of time. So it's kind of having in your mind what you want to be able to do to get it ready and get it set. So that's pretty much kind of going over the basics of Gradebook, creating categories, creating items so that you have everything set up in Gradebook. And then once it's set up, knowing some of what the advantages and disadvantages are, then you're ready to start grading. So does anybody have any questions? I see Joy has a statement, she said. Joy, I would agree. I see what you're saying. I don't see how it's set up as how the setup is a disadvantage since you know how you're going to grade. It's put in the syllabus. That's the thing that most people do have. I have actually heard multiple people throughout different semesters that have contacted me because they've decided to change how they're going to actually have it. That's why I make the comment about it being classified as a disadvantage. But I agree. Generally, when it's all set up in the syllabus, that's what it's going to be and what it should be for the whole time. But I think there are some people that have changed stuff throughout the syllabus, especially if it's maybe a new instructor that is setting it up for the first time. They were given a course by somebody else, given a syllabus. Maybe they've talked to their students and changed it. So that's kind of why I was saying a disadvantage. Plus, courses a lot of times are set up ahead of time. So if you're setting the course up ahead of time prior to the syllabus, then that's where you have to make that thought as to how you want to set it up before you actually create your syllabus at that point. So that's where I was kind of coming from a full-time instructor that's been here for a while. Is a lot of times you set your courses up so you know what you're going to do prior to the syllabus. See, Dr. Sutton says, sometimes they know they want to use points but think they might want to use percent but are not sure how. And that happens too with a lot of times. I've seen people a lot of times that'll do it, and what they actually will do is they'll set up points for everything. Like you were saying, Dr. Sutton, they try to figure it out on their own with a spreadsheet on how to do it, and then when they realize they can do stuff in here, sometimes they'll change it over to percents at that point. Maybe they didn't put categories in initially, they just put in grade items, and they're wanting to figure out how to be able to link those up together. I've had several faculty that have actually asked questions on that here in the last several months. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. I don't think there's any other questions. So thank you guys for attending, and hopefully there was some helpful information in here. And if you want to set up a grade book and you have questions or run into problems, contact one of us in CTAT. Contact us by phone number. Contact us by email. The phone number's up there. So is the email on the end of this presentation, so you guys can get a hold of us, and one of us will be happy to be able to help you out with it. Thanks, guys.